All right, joining us to talk more on this environmental day and then the theme for this year is John Baaki. I hope I got that right. He's a program manager, Women Environmental Program. John Baaki is a program manager, Women Environmental Program. John, thank you for finding our time to be here. I hope you are not John the Baptist.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. Okay. All right. Very quickly, you need to be a little bit audible so that we'll have your views on some of the things we'll be posing to you. It's the 2018 edition of World Environmental Day. First of all, I want to ask you, are you satisfied with the way our environments look, especially in Africa?
I am not. I'm not satisfied with the way our environment looks, especially in Africa, especially in Nigeria. Because if you go around our cities, you see liters of plastic waste everywhere. Our biggest problem in Africa and in Nigeria in particular is waste management. That is one of the biggest environmental problems we have been battling with over time. And I think this year's theme comes at the right time to remind us that it is time to beat plastic pollution.
Okay, well, when you talk about plastic pollution, you know, what really comes to the mind of an average Nigerian is that, okay, apart from pure water, maybe if you go for the plastic bottled water, you know, you are free from plastic pollution and all of that. But we also know that some of these materials can actually be refined, you know, and turned into another finished product. Now, how do you think all of this can help in making the environment much more healthier, especially for us humans?
Well, when you talk about plastic pollution, plastic in itself is not a bad material. Yes, but where plastic is bad is when it's not disposed as it should. And the plastic that is problematic, you know, it is not every plastic that is problematic, because plastics serve a lot of uses, from manufacture of cars, aeroplanes, our computers, like almost everything we use, apart from the clothes we wear. Even the clothes we wear has a bit of plastic. So the problematic plastic is the single-use plastics. Okay. The one that you use once and then
it goes off.
It goes off. You dispose of it. That is the one that is causing problem in the environment, given the fact that Africa or Nigeria lacks the capacity, should I say capacity, or lacks the will to manage these plastics that go into the environment that cause different kinds of environmental effects. But these plastics can actually be recycled or reused. But before you free them from the environment, it means you have good waste management in place. You have good plastic recycling plants in place, so that you can convert the water bottles or the sachet water into another form of plastic. So the plastic will not be seen as waste, but it will be seen as raw materials, which will be used in the production of other plastic products that we require. But because we don't have good waste management in place, we keep seeing this on the streets, and they keep degrading the environment.
Now you're talking about good management, good waste management. Now, who do you think has a major role to play in such waste management? The government or we as individuals?
The government has the biggest role to play as far as waste management is concerned. Government has you have a primary roles the government has to perform: security, health. Waste management is part of the health mandate the government has to perform to its citizens. If you look at what is involved in waste management, citizens have their role to play quite okay, but the overall management rests with the government. citizens have the role to appropriately dispose of waste where they are supposed to dispose of them. Government has the responsibility to provide or to direct on how this waste will be disposed. If it should be segregated, government has the responsibility to let the citizens know. That awareness has to be there. And then government has the last responsibility to evacuate this waste and treat the ones that they have to treat, recycle the ones that they have to recycle, and dispose of the ones they have to dispose. So government has the biggest role. Evacuating the waste, recycling them, or treating them to go to their final life.
Well, when you talk about government, most times I begin to wonder if the citizens will just sit back and watch government do all of this. Because if I, as a citizen, I know that dropping a paper bag right on this table is going to cause environmental hazard to not just to me, but to every living thing that is on earth, why should I go ahead and do that? Do you think we lack orientation when it comes to environmental protection, you know, in this part of the world, or we have this lackadaisical attitude towards our environment? Don't forget, we are also the ones who will suffer at the end of the day. Do you think we lack that orientation?
I think you have said it all. We lack that orientation. Well, I don't know how our minds are programmed. An average Nigerian man or woman, or an African man or woman, disposes waste anywhere he or she feels like. That may be as a result of lack of awareness about properly disposing of waste from the appropriate authorities who are supposed to sensitize the citizens about that. That may also be as a result of lack of enforcement of environmental regulations by the appropriate authorities who are supposed to do that. Because in any environment where there is no law, everything goes, anything goes. So if by dropping your sachet water into any gutter or on the road, nothing happens to you, it means there is no law. But there are laws, there are regulations affecting that. But why that is happening is because the agencies who are responsible to regulate these actions do not live very well up to their responsibilities. So the sensitization is one thing that is lacking, and the enforcement is another that is lacking. You know, human beings are very funny. If you just leave them to their free will, they can do anything. So sometimes they need some directions, they need some enforcement for them to do the right thing.
Do you think we are helpless?
We cannot say we are helpless, even though our situation is not as it ought to be. We can rise up to the challenge and deal with this issue. So we are not helpless because we have the government, we have authorities who are in charge of this matter. So it is left for the concerned citizens to rise up and say, you do your job. We want a clean environment, because without clean environment, we will not have a good health. It has that connection with the environment. That is that intricately connected to the environment.
You spoke about recycling of plastic bags, and we all know how we cannot wait for the government to do things for us. I mean, we've been waiting for the government and see the condition of the environment now. What method, what do you think a regular Nigerian now could recycle the plastic bag individually? Your plastic bag, your plastic bottle, how do you think we could reuse it as an individual? Now, I've seen someone use pure water leather to plant flowers. So how do you think we can help ourselves without waiting for the government? Because if we wait for the government, we know these things will not come up at the end of the day. So how do you think as an individual you could assist the environment and recycle your plastic waste?
The fact is, Nigerians are doing so much in preventing plastic pollution. but their efforts, I tell you, is like a drop in the ocean. You have private sector who are involved in waste recycling, plastic recycling. You have individuals who pick plastic waste and try to use them, convert them to other beautiful products like handbags or so stuff to use in decoration in the rooms. Okay. But if you look at the volume of plastic that is produced every day and ends up in the environment, you will know that the efforts that are being made are just like a drop in the ocean.
So now I'm saying, as an individual, as a regular individual at home that is watching you now, yes, what would you tell them to reuse their, because it's not everybody that, what would you advise them or encourage them to reuse their plastic bags for, or their plastic bottles?
Okay, no effort is more. So what I would advise them is avoid flamboyant shopping style. Yeah.
We love lavish lifestyles in Nigeria.
Yes. Shop friendly. Okay. What that means is, if you go to a supermarket to buy a product and a product is handed to you in a plastic bag, when you go home, keep that plastic bag. When next you are going to the provision shop, take it along with you so that you don't collect another one, which you will dispose of definitely.
Okay.
So ensure you reuse your plastic bags when you go to buy your consumer products. Keep the plastic bags that you always take with you to provision shops and buy stuff that you need. Another way could be to turn these plastics, like you see, you know, computer CPUs, these olden computer CPUs. There are some people who have turned them into center tables.
Oh.
Yeah, they get a glass, they put one by this side, one by this side, and then lay on the glass, and it becomes a center table. That's upcycling. So you can do something like that. People are doing so many creative things. People are using these black plastic bags to produce handbags, to produce hand bangles, and many other products. So you can be as creative as thinking of what you can use this plastic waste. Instead of leaving them to be waste, you can convert them to something meaningful. There is another man who uses the plastic water bottles to build houses.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yes, so that is another way to remove plastic from the environment.
Okay.
Now let me take you back to the theme for this year's celebration, Beat Plastic Pollution. What are the likely environmental hazards caused by plastics? What are the likely environmental issues that we'll likely have if all these things are allowed to litter our environment?
Okay, if you trace the origin of plastic, you will see that plastic is produced from crude oil, from different compounds of crude oil. And if you look at the issues of climate change, which is causing rise in global temperatures, leading to changing weather patterns across the world.
Global warming and all that.
Yes. You will see where the pollution from plastic is coming from. Because plastic is made from compounds of crude oil, it has some reasonable amount of carbon. And then when plastic becomes a problem is when it is either burnt. When it is burnt, it produces some toxins like furans, like PCBs, which have serious health effects, which can affect a woman's fertility, a woman's conception.
Wow. If she inhales the smoke, or how?
Yes, that comes out of the plastic.
Wow.
When you burn the plastic. And that is why the United Nations, under their convention, the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, they list some of the toxins that when you burn plastic, you get as persistent organic pollutants. And those persistent organic pollutants, they are pollutants that persist in the environment. That is to say, if you feed on food that has persistent organic pollutants, or if a fish, for example, feed on food that has persistent organic pollutant in it, it is going to pass it to a man when a man feeds on that fish.
The fish. Wow.
Yes, so it is not destroyed. It is passed up onto the food chain. So if you look at all this, you will see how harmful plastics are when they are either destroyed by burning or when they are dumped in the ocean. As they stay in the ocean, the toxins in them leak gradually into the ocean. And that affects the aquatic life.
Yeah.
Because the fish in the ocean, they feed on anything they see. And there are some aquatic organisms that see plastic as their own food, given the fact that you have tons and tons of plastics in the ocean. And we depend on this aquatic life for our nutrition. So when we feed on them, we are feeding on toxins that we may not know.
No.
And the effects may result to some health challenges like cancer, like infertility amongst women and men. Apart from that, burning of plastic can contribute to global warming because plastic has carbon in it, and when it is released into the atmosphere, by the time it's burnt, it increases the amount of greenhouse gas you have in the atmosphere, which continue to raise global temperatures.
Okay.
And now that we are trying to limit the average global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius, burning of plastic will make the realization of that goal not feasible.
So what do you think, or at what level do you think Nigeria is when it comes to plastic pollution? At what level? Maybe you have a clue, maybe a global rating. What is our rating as far as plastic and pollution is concerned?
If you say I should grade on a scale of 1 to 10, I will say Nigeria is on the rating of 8 to 9 as far as plastic pollution is concerned in the world and in Africa. Because there are some African countries that have banned single-use plastics.
Wow.
Like Kenya, like Rwanda, they have banned single-use plastics. And there are other countries that are making arrangements to ban the use of single-use plastics. But in Nigeria, we have not taken that steps. I know there were discussions before now that sachet water will be banned, single-use plastic will be banned, but that has never been done. And even before you do that, you have to sit down and plan properly. What are the alternatives to this single-use plastics? What are the alternatives to this sachet water? You have to plan properly before you take any step of saying, we are going to place a ban on single-use plastics.
So me as an individual, what role do I have to play to curtail the use of single-use plastic and plastic pollution in the environment?
The role you have to play is use only the plastic that you need. If you cannot reuse it, don't collect it.
Just not drink pure water again.
If you drink pure water, in the case of pure water, if you drink pure water, dispose it appropriately.
Okay. What is the appropriate method precisely?
You have your waste bins in your home. It has been provided for you in Abuja, for example, by Abuja Environmental Protection Board.
Okay.
So dispose it there, and then the men and women of the Abuja Environmental Protection Board will evacuate it to wherever they take that for processing or for final disposal. Even that is a challenge, but at least by disposing it where it's supposed to be and if it is moved where it's supposed to be moved, you would have removed it from the gutters, and by that you would have prevented flooding, because plastics majorly contributes to blocking of drainage channels, which leads to urban flooding. So by that, you would have prevented that.
Now, as we try to call it a wrap, what do you think is the way forward?
The way forward is for Nigeria to begin to think of alternatives, because we cannot just jump up one day and say we are going to place a ban on single-use plastics. You will have so many people who will fight you, because you have sachet water and bottled water producers who are making their income from this, and they will threaten your life if you wake up one day to say that no more production of bottled water, or no more production of sachet water, or the customer plastic bags in the provision shops.
Yeah.
You wake up one day to say you ban them. Those who trade in that will be against you. But I think it is time Nigeria needs to bring all these stakeholders to the round table to discuss, so that they see reasons why this has to be curtailed. The impact, the negative impact that the plastic pollution is causing to our environment, not just to the environment, to human health. And again, the regulatory agencies of government, like NISRIA, National Environmental Standards Regulatory Agency, needs to be firm in regulating the environment, in enforcing environmental regulations. I know they have some programs that are running that are aimed at curtailing plastic pollution. Like they have what they call extended producer responsibility. In that extended producer responsibility, if, for example, a company that is responsible for producing plastic bottles, maybe water bottles, or some of these soft drinks, is responsible for removing the waste that is generated as a result of consumption of those products and recycling them or treating them. So if they enforce that producer extended responsibility, they would have gotten most of these big producers of plastic bottles and plastic bags to remove them from the environment and recycle them or dispose of them appropriately. So that is one way to get rid of plastic from the environment. But at a point that they are now, they have just started and they have not really taken on board many of the producers, and it has not extended to many states of the federation the last time I knew about it. So these are the ways that we can get rid of plastic in our environment if the government begins to think of alternatives. What will replace these plastics
plastic bags,
by the time we place a ban on them? And why we produce, can we get the producers of these plastics to get them out of the environment and recycle them? Let them take it upon themselves as their responsibility of preventing the plastic that they produce in polluting the environment.
Well, John, thank you so very much. I know you are loaded, and if we give you all the time, we'll know that we'll extract a lot of information from you. Thank you so very much for finding the time to be on People's Television today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, this is where we'll be allowing John to go continue with his environmental duties. Then when we come back after the break,